My name is Linda, and I'm 27 years old. After 8 grueling years of medical school, I was finally about to graduate from Yale Medical School. My family seemed perfect from the outside. My father, Henry Thompson, was a renowned cardiologist at Hartford Hospital. My mother, Martha, was the head nurse at the same facility, and my older brother, Roger, was already an established internal medicine physician. But something felt terribly wrong in the weeks leading up to my graduation. The way they looked at me had changed. There were hushed conversations that stopped the moment I entered a room. The pressure I'd always felt to excel like Roger had transformed into something much darker and more sinister than I could have ever imagined. Before I tell you how my own family tried to destroy my future, let me know where you are watching from, and don't forget to hit that like button. You won't believe what they had planned for my graduation day. The Thompson family had always been the epitome of medical excellence in Hartford, Connecticut. Our colonial-style house on Maple Street was worth $850,000, and my father's Mercedes S-Class sat proudly in the driveway next to my mother's BMW X5. Growing up, dinner conversations revolved around medical cases, research papers, and academic achievements. My father, Henry, had built his reputation over 25 years as one of the most respected cardiologists in the state. He performed complex surgeries at Hartford Hospital and had published numerous papers in prestigious medical journals. My mother, Martha, had climbed her way up from a floor nurse to head of nursing, managing over 200 staff members. Roger, my brother, who was 3 years older, had followed perfectly in their footsteps. He graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Medical School and completed his residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. By age 30, he was already making $200,000 annually and had just bought a house in West Hartford for $400,000. The family constantly reminded me of Roger's achievements. Every report card, every test score, every accomplishment was compared to his stellar record. I had worked tirelessly to meet their expectations. My GPA of 3.8 was excellent by any standard, but it wasn't Roger's perfect 4.0. I had scored in the 95th percentile on my MCAT, but Roger had scored in the 99th. I had been accepted to Yale Medical School, which was incredibly prestigious, but Roger had gone to Harvard. Nothing I did ever seemed quite good enough. The pressure was suffocating, but I pushed through because I genuinely loved medicine and wanted to help people. During my final semester, something shifted dramatically in the family dynamic. Previously, they had been demanding but supportive. Now there was an undercurrent of hostility that I couldn't understand. Family dinners became tense affairs where conversations felt forced and artificial. My parents would exchange meaningful glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Roger would make subtle comments about my stress levels and my ability to handle pressure. When I asked if everything was okay, they would dismiss my concerns with fake smiles and reassurances that everything was fine. The house that had once felt like home began to feel like a battlefield where I was fighting an enemy I couldn't see or understand. The first red flag appeared 3 weeks before graduation. I had come home early from my clinical rotations and found my family huddled around the kitchen table with papers spread out in front of them. The moment they heard my key in the door, there was a frantic shuffling of documents and guilty expressions all around. When I asked what they were discussing, my father simply said they were planning graduation logistics. But the papers I glimpsed looked nothing like party planning materials. They appeared to be medical forms and legal documents. Over the next few days, I noticed a disturbing pattern in their conversations. They would frequently mention my mental health, expressing concerns about my stress levels and emotional stability. My mother would say things like, "Linda has been under so much pressure lately. I'm worried about her mental state." My father would nod gravely and add, "Medical school can really take a toll on a person's psychological well-being. Some students just can't handle the intensity." Roger was the most vocal about his supposed concerns. He would make comments like, "I've noticed Linda seems unstable lately. She's been acting erratically, and I'm genuinely worried about her mental health." When I confronted him about these statements, He would claim he was just looking out for me as a concerned older brother, but his tone was cold and calculating, not loving or protective. The most unsettling part was their suggestion that I should take a gap year after graduation instead of immediately starting my residency. They claimed I needed time to rest and recover from the stress of medical school. This made no sense to me because I felt mentally and physically healthy. I had already accepted a residency position at a hospital in Boston, and I was excited to begin the next phase of my career. Their behavior became increasingly suspicious when they started having phone conversations in hushed tones that would end abruptly when I entered the room. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home, surrounded by people who were supposed to love me, but who seemed to be plotting something behind my back. The anxiety was eating away at me, but I had no concrete evidence of wrongdoing, just a growing sense of dread that something terrible was about to happen. My instincts were screaming that my family was hiding something significant, but I never could have imagined the scope of their betrayal. My suspicions reached a breaking point when I decided to investigate what my family was really planning. I knew it was wrong to spy on them, but my gut feeling told me I was in serious danger. I started hiding my iPhone in various locations around the house to record their conversations when I wasn't present. The small device easily fit behind books on shelves or under couch cushions where they would never think to look. What I discovered was absolutely horrifying and beyond anything I could have imagined. My family had developed an elaborate plan to have me declared mentally incompetent just days before my graduation ceremony. My father had contacted his colleague, Dr. Richard Steinberg, who worked at Connecticut Valley Hospital, a psychiatric facility about 30 miles from Hartford. Dr. Steinberg owed my father several professional favors and had agreed to help with their scheme. The plan was diabolical in its complexity. They intended to drug me with a combination of sedatives and hallucinogens that would make me appear disoriented and unstable during my graduation ceremony. When I inevitably behaved erratically in front of hundreds of witnesses, they would claim I was having a complete mental breakdown. Dr. Steinberg would be conveniently present at the ceremony as a family friend and would immediately recommend emergency psychiatric evaluation and commitment. My father had already prepared falsified medical records, documenting a fictional history of mental illness, depression, and suicidal ideation. These documents were backdated to make it appear that I had been struggling with psychological issues throughout medical school, but had been hiding them from my professors and classmates. The paperwork looked completely authentic because my father had access to legitimate hospital letterhead and official forms through his position at Hartford Hospital. But the most devastating revelation was the motive behind their plan. Roger was in serious financial trouble due to a gambling addiction that had spiraled completely out of control. He owed over $300,000 to various creditors and loan sharks. His beautiful house was about to be foreclosed upon, and he was facing potential criminal charges for unpaid debts. My parents knew about his gambling problem and had decided to help him by stealing my inheritance and the $50,000 signing bonus I would receive from my residency program. If I were declared mentally incompetent, my father would become my legal guardian and would gain control over all of my assets, including my trust fund worth $200,000 that I was set to inherit upon graduation. They planned to transfer all of this money to Roger to pay off his debts and save his career and reputation. Once I understood the full scope of their betrayal, I knew I had to act quickly and strategically to protect myself. I spent the next 2 weeks carefully documenting everything while pretending that nothing had changed. I continued the recordings and managed to capture several more conversations that provided additional evidence of their conspiracy. I recorded my father discussing the specific drugs they planned to use and the exact timing of when they would administer them. I captured Roger talking about how he would use my money to pay off his gambling debts. I also discovered that my father had forged my signature on several legal documents, including a power of attorney that would give him control over my finances in the event of my incapacitation. He had practiced copying my handwriting for weeks to make the signatures look authentic. I photographed all of these documents with my phone, making sure to capture clear images that would hold up as evidence. Knowing that I needed professional help, I contacted a law firm in downtown Hartford that specialized in family law and elder abuse cases. I met with attorney Sarah Mitchell and explained my situation. She was initially skeptical because the story sounded so outrageous, but when I played the recordings and showed her the forged documents, she immediately understood the gravity of the situation. She helped me prepare a comprehensive legal strategy to protect my rights and assets. I also scheduled an appointment with Dr. Jennifer Walsh, an independent psychiatrist who had no connection to my family or Hartford Hospital. I underwent a complete psychological evaluation that took over 3 hours and included multiple standardized tests. Dr. Walsh concluded that I was in excellent mental health with no signs of depression, anxiety, or any other psychological disorders. She provided me with a detailed written report that I could use to counter any claims about my mental stability. The hardest part was maintaining my composure around my family while knowing what they were planning. Every dinner conversation felt like torture as they continued to express fake concern about my well-being while secretly plotting my destruction. I had to smile and act normal while my heart was breaking over their betrayal. The people who were supposed to love and protect me were actively working to destroy my future and steal everything I had worked for. I set up multiple hidden cameras throughout the house and purchased a small recording device that I could wear during the graduation ceremony. I was determined to capture everything they did so that I would have irrefutable proof of their crimes. Graduation day arrived on a beautiful Saturday morning in May. The ceremony was held at Yale's historic Woolsey Hall, a magnificent Gothic revival building that could seat over 2,000 people. Family members, friends, and faculty filled the ornate auditorium as 123 medical students prepared to receive their diplomas and take the Hippocratic Oath. My family arrived dressed impeccably and wearing broad smiles that I now recognized as completely fake. My father wore his best navy blue suit and looked every inch the distinguished physician. My mother had chosen an elegant rose-colored dress and pearl necklace. Roger appeared confident and relaxed in his charcoal gray suit, showing no signs of the financial desperation I knew he was experiencing. Dr. Steinberg was also in attendance, just as I had expected based on their recorded conversations. He was a tall, thin man with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses, who looked exactly like Central Casting's idea of a psychiatrist. He positioned himself near the back of the auditorium, where he could easily approach me if their plan succeeded. Before the ceremony began, my family suggested we go to the campus coffee shop to get drinks and take some photos. This was when they planned to drug me. My mother had prepared a special coffee drink that she claimed was my favorite vanilla latte with extra foam. She insisted I drink it to calm my nerves before the big ceremony. I accepted the cup graciously, but managed to discreetly pour most of it into a potted plant when they weren't looking. I only took tiny sips to make it appear that I was drinking normally. Within 30 minutes, they expected me to start showing signs of disorientation and confusion. When nothing happened, I could see the panic beginning to build in their eyes. They kept asking how I was feeling and whether I needed to sit down or get some fresh air. My father suggested that perhaps the stress of the day was overwhelming me and that I should consider skipping the ceremony altogether. When their drugging plan failed, they moved to Plan B. As we entered Woolsey Hall and took our seats, my father began speaking loudly enough for nearby families to hear him. He said, "Linda has been acting very strangely lately. I'm really concerned about her mental state. She's been having episodes of confusion and disorientation." Roger immediately joined in telling anyone who would listen that I had a history of mental health problems and that he was worried I might have some kind of breakdown during the ceremony. I was wearing the small recording device hidden in my graduation gown, and it was capturing every word they said. Multiple families around us began looking at me with concern and curiosity. Some moved their children away from me as if I were dangerous. The humiliation was intense, but I knew I had to endure it to gather the evidence I needed. As my name was called, and I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, my family made their move. The moment I returned to my seat, my father stood up and began shouting that I was having a medical emergency. He claimed I was acting erratically and needed immediate psychiatric intervention. Roger jumped up and began telling everyone that I had a history of mental illness and was clearly experiencing a psychotic break. Steinberg materialized as if on cue and began approaching me with an official-looking clipboard and medical forms. He announced to the crowd that he was a licensed psychiatrist and that he needed to evaluate me immediately for everyone's safety. Security guards began moving toward me, and I could see that several families were recording the scene with their phones. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I stood up calmly and addressed the entire auditorium in a clear, strong voice. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are witnessing is not a medical emergency. What you are seeing is an elaborate fraud perpetrated by my own family. I pulled out my phone and began playing the recorded conversations for everyone to hear. The acoustics in Woolsey Hall were excellent, so my father's voice rang out clearly as he discussed drugging me and forging documents. Roger's voice followed, detailing how he planned to use my money to pay off his gambling debts. The entire auditorium fell silent as they listened to the evidence of this shocking betrayal. I then produced copies of the forged legal documents and the falsified medical records that my father had created. I held them up for everyone to see and explained how my father had used his position at Hartford Hospital to create fraudulent paperwork. I showed the audience Dr. Walsh's psychiatric evaluation that proved I was in perfect mental health. The crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs of disbelief. My family's faces turned white as they realized their plan had been completely exposed. My father tried to claim that the recordings were fake, but too many people had heard his distinctive voice to deny the evidence. Roger attempted to leave the auditorium, but several audience members blocked his path. Dr. Steinberg quickly disappeared into the crowd, clearly wanting no part of the scandal that was unfolding. Campus security called the Hartford Police Department, and within 15 minutes, 3 patrol cars had arrived at Woolsey Hall. The officers listened to my recordings and examined my evidence before placing my father and Roger under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and forgery. The aftermath of that graduation day changed everything. The story made headlines in newspapers throughout Connecticut and was covered by local television news stations. "Prominent doctor attempts to frame daughter as mentally ill" was the headline in the Hartford Courant. The scandal destroyed my father's reputation and career virtually overnight. The Connecticut State Medical Board launched an immediate investigation into my father's conduct. Within 6 weeks, his medical license was permanently revoked due to the falsification of medical records and the attempt to commit medical fraud. Hartford Hospital terminated his employment and banned him from their premises. The 25-year career he had built was completely destroyed, and he faced potential criminal charges that could result in up to 10 years in prison. Roger's situation was equally devastating. The FBI began investigating his gambling activities and discovered that he had been involved with illegal offshore betting operations. His medical license was suspended pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. His house went into foreclosure, and he filed for bankruptcy. The Connecticut Attorney General's office charged him with conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. His promising medical career was finished before his 31st birthday. My mother lost her position as head nurse at Hartford Hospital due to her involvement in the conspiracy. The hospital's administration determined that her participation in the scheme violated their ethics policies and made her unfit for a leadership role. She was blacklisted from other major hospitals in the area and struggled to find employment in her field. Meanwhile, my life took a dramatically different turn. I completed my residency at Boston Medical Center, where I specialized in emergency medicine. The story of what happened at my graduation had spread throughout the medical community, and I found tremendous support from colleagues who admired my courage in standing up to my family's abuse. Several prominent physicians offered me mentorship and guidance as I built my career. I moved to California and started fresh in San Diego, where I joined the emergency department at Scripps Memorial Hospital. The warm climate and distance from Connecticut helped me heal from the trauma of my family's betrayal. I made new friends among my medical colleagues and gradually learned to trust people again. It took months of therapy to work through the emotional damage, but I eventually found peace. The financial outcome was also positive for me. I received all of the money that my family had tried to steal, including my trust fund and residency signing bonus. Additionally, I sued them for emotional distress and won a judgment of $500,000 that helped me establish my new life in California. The most important lesson I learned is that family isn't always about blood relations. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who will hurt you the deepest. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, even against your own family, is the bravest thing you can do. Trust your instincts, document everything, and never let anyone make you question your own sanity. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you need to protect yourself from the most. If you've ever felt like something was wrong in your family situation, trust that feeling and don't ignore the warning signs. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who were trying to harm you? Let me know in the comments below how you handled that situation. If this story helped you recognize similar patterns in your own life, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family betrayal. Share this video with anyone who might be dealing with toxic family relationships, because sometimes we all need to know we're not alone. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your intuition is one of your most powerful tools for protecting yourself. Stay strong, trust yourself, and never let anyone convince you that you're crazy when you know you're not. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.